Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we are jumping back in time to the 90s to be exact, to talk about the second generation of mobile networks, or 2G. And trust me, this wasn't just some minor upgrade, it was a total revolution that completely changed the way we all communicate. So, let's dive in.
You know, to really get why 2G was such a huge deal, you have to remember what the world was like with 1G. I mean, sure, having a mobile phone at all was amazing, but they had some serious problems. Your calls could be easily listened in on, the audio was often a static-filled mess, and the idea of doing anything besides talking, that was pure science fiction. The industry knew that just wasn't going to cut it.
And that big change? It came roaring in during the 1990s. This was the decade that mobile communications stopped using old-school analog waves and finally learned to speak the language of computers, ones and zeros. This was the digital revolution, and it changed everything.
So after about a decade of those analog 1G networks, the real game-changing moment hit in 1991. Over in Finland, a company called Radiolinja switched on the world's very first commercial 2G network, using what was called the GSM standard. And from that one launch, this digital fire just started spreading like crazy all over the globe.
So what was the secret sauce here? What made it so different? Well, the single biggest upgrade from 1G to 2G was that fundamental switch from analog signals to digital ones. And that one change, that one single idea, unlocked this huge wave of improvements that, honestly, we're still benefiting from today.
Let's put them side by side. The jump from 1G to 2G was, well, it was dramatic. Where 1G was totally insecure, 2G brought in digital encryption. Where 1G calls were noisy and crackly, 2G used error correction to give you crystal clear conversations. But the biggest deal? Capacity. 1G could only handle one person on a channel at a time. 2G figured out a really clever way to let a bunch of people share.
With 1G's analog system, a single phone call basically hogged an entire slice of the radio waves all to itself. I want you to picture a giant highway, but only one car is allowed on it at any given time. It's just incredibly inefficient, right? So, what did 2G do? Its digital technology took that exact same highway and cleverly divided it into multiple lanes, or what they called time slots. And suddenly, instead of just one car, you could have 3, maybe even 8 cars, all using the same stretch of road without bumping into each other.
Now, this really clever technique has a name. It's called Time Division Multiple Access, or TDMA for short. The easiest way to think about it is like a group of people in a conversation who are all taking turns to speak, but they're doing it super fast. Each person gets a tiny little slice of time to send their part of the conversation. It happens so quickly that to our ears, it just sounds like one continuous, smooth call.
So going digital gave us these massive benefits. All of a sudden, the networks could handle way more callers. Our conversations were finally secure from eavesdroppers. The quality was just plain better. And this is a big one, because digital signals were more efficient, they used less battery power, which finally let our phones get smaller and last much longer.
Okay, so unlike the kind of messy Wild West of 1G, where everyone was doing their own thing, the 2G era saw a few major digital standards rise to the top, and they were all competing to be the one that carriers and customers would choose. Depending on where you were in the world back then, your first digital phone probably used one of these 4 main technologies. GSM, which, spoiler alert, would end up becoming the dominant one. There was IS-136 or DAMPS, PDC, which was mainly used over in Japan, and IS-95, which you might actually know better as CDMA1. This chart gives us a really great breakdown. You can see that most of the standards, like GSM, use that TDMA time slicing method we just talked about. But CDMA1 took a different route, using something called Code Division Multiple Access, or CDMA. That system let everyone talk at once, but gave each call a unique digital code to keep them separate. This was really popular with carriers like Sprint and Verizon in the US, while GSM pretty much took over Europe and Asia.
And we really have to give a special mention to GSM. Not only did it become the global standard, but it introduced something that we all just take for granted today, the SIM card. For the very first time, your phone number, your actual identity, wasn't physically tied to your phone. It was on that tiny little chip that you could just pop out and move to a new phone. I mean, think about how huge that was.
But, 2G's biggest legacy wasn't just making phone calls better. Because it was digital, it could handle something 1G could never even dream of, data. And this right here opened up a whole new universe of possibilities.
And this is where things get really fun. Because it was digital, the mobile phone, which for years had only ever been used for talking, suddenly learned some incredible new tricks that would literally go on to change our culture forever.
And the biggest trick of them all was the short message service, SMS. Yeah, that's right, texting was officially born. All of a sudden, you could send these quiet, discreet little messages to people. It was a total cultural phenomenon. And that was quickly followed by picture messages, multimedia messages, and the very beginnings of being able to use your phone when you traveled overseas.
And that really just laid the groundwork for the next little step up, which people started calling 2.5G. Technologies like GPRS used the same 2G network, but offered faster data speeds. This gave us our very first taste of things like mobile web browsing, checking email, and even basic maps, right there in the palm of your hand.
So, when we look back at it, it is so clear that 2G wasn't just another generation. It was the absolute foundation of the mobile world that we all live in today.
2G is what took mobile phones from being a niche luxury item to a tool for everybody. It made our calls private and secure. It gave us texting, which is practically a new language. And most importantly, by introducing data to mobile, it basically paved the entire digital highway that the smartphone revolution would soon come speeding down.
Of course, it wasn't perfect. As incredible as 2G was, its data speeds were painfully slow by today's standards. It was never built to handle the kind of complex data we use now, like streaming video. For that, the world was going to need another big leap forward, which set the stage perfectly for 3G.
Which kind of leaves us with a final thought to chew on. 2G's killer app, the text message, was a really simple data service that nobody really saw coming, but it changed the world. So as we're moving into these new eras of 5G and 6G with their mind-blowing speeds and capabilities, what's it going to be? What's the simple, unexpected new thing that will emerge and define our future? It's something to think about. Thanks so much for tuning in.